Bob Perkins with AA-ISP. I'm happy to be with Scott Santucci, the founder of Sales Enablement Society, Digi-Cast, number 3. Scott, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bob. It's great to be here. And you look like you're on vacation or something. Where are you?
I'm in Rochester, New York, ready to golf, but it's raining out. I'm at here at my son's house, and he's put us up for about a month. We're going to play some golf, but I'm going to do some work too.
Excellent.
And you're in Africa right now?
I am. I'm in the Serengeti, and I'm looking to run with the antelope away from the lions.
I'll try not to make that lion mad, but hey, listen, super excited to bring to you our 3rd Digi-Cast, and it's my turn to pepper Scott with some questions. Scott, today you're going to touch on, so what? So why? Here we are. Why should AA-ISP chapters and SES chapters collaborate? And then if they do, what should they be talking about? What are some of the topics? And finally, I'm going to ask you some specific actionable takeaways on what inside sales leaders can expect around sales enablement. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, here we go. Chapters. What do you have?
So chapters, we've actually had some pretty great, exciting things happen this week. Our Atlanta chapter got together, and really in their meeting, what they did is explore, boy, there's a real natural fit between our organizations. So it was kind of good to hear, hey, Scott, we heard what you and Bob were talking about, but it's actually kind of neat to actually see it in real life. So that's what happened in Atlanta, and they actually made a video. And I asked them to make sure that they addressed it to you. So that was exciting. And then just last night, so we're recording this on June 27th, just last night, we had a meeting in Phoenix. And one of the topics that they had was a panel per our suggestion, our motivation on inside sales. And that panel ran way long because it was so engaging and interesting. So on that panel, I'm trying to make sure, it's tough to keep track of all the notes here so quickly. And then we do everything by text and mobile. So let me share some highlights. So Brian and Chip are our chapter leaders there. Basically they went way over. The session was led by Bill Hoffman, who's a VP of Sales and Marketing at OpenTech, and Andrea Leiden, who's the Director of Sales Development at Gainsight. And the conversation was about a lot of these different things. What kinds of technologies do we need? What kinds of support infrastructure do we need? And the conversation was highly engaged and all over the place in a good way. I think it's really, goes to a testament about what our collective vision here is. Inside sales is growing and changing, and there's a whole bunch of different flavors of it. And then, of course, sales enablement has lots of different flavors of it. How do we pattern match the flavors of inside sales with the patterns of sales enablement?
And it's only getting, broader, bigger, more important. I'm going to caution you and me and our respective teams. Let's not lose fact of the human side of this. But we got a lot of work to do. So
huge
chapter meetings, topics, your conference, our conference. Help us understand some of the key challenges, key areas of relevance that our respective leaders should be teeing up in terms of topics for the future.
So I would say in terms of an overall mission between AA-ISP and Sales Enablement Society. So let's talk strategic first, the so what for strategic. What I'd like to see us do at our conference is talk strategically. Everybody wants resource. Inside salespeople need resources to be able to carve out their group. Sales enablement people need resources. You're not going to get resources complaining and talking about tactics all the time. The only way that you're going to get resources is to elevate it and make it strategic. And that's a muscle memory that, frankly, a lot of us just don't have, and we need to practice it. So that's one of the things that hopefully we'll concentrate on in the conference. My vision on that would be, let's define a couple flavors. Like, hey, here's the scope of what BDRs look like. And based on if you have a role of BDRs, then here's what the support infrastructure behind it looks like. And let's build patterns. And it's so simple if we let it be simple and do the 80-20 rule. Let's find the rule and not worry about the exceptions. And a lot of our members are caught up around sort of let's do the exception game. Well, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work in our scenario.
Scott, I love what I'm hearing. I'm going to turn the clock back a few, 10 years, 12 years. And when you said elevate, I made it my personal goal as a VP Director of Inside Sales to elevate the profession to senior leaders so we would get more support and buy-in. Now you're talking about elevating some of the resources, the building blocks, the technologies, so that we get what we need. That's fantastic. Talk on that just a little bit more, if you would.
Yeah, so what I would like us to be able to do is for our respective professions to be able to come together at our conference and define what some of these patterns would look like. So we will have a combination of presentations and working sessions and create a forcing function, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but a motivating factor to get us to publish some starting points. And they don't have to be perfect, but we need to start providing more direction and some leadership for our executive leaders, because as confusing as it is for us, it's 8 million times more confusing for executive leaders, because they have to worry about the inside sales group, the strategic accounts group, the geographic sales group, all the different versions of marketing. What does digital marketing look like? And then, oh gosh, by the way, they have to worry about the numbers and, you know, all of the changing rules and regulations and buyers, and they got a lot on their plate. The more we can simplify it for them, the more we're all going to grow.
So let's just kind of visualize this, right, at your conference or our leadership summit, both of them. We might have a breakout session for leaders of an SDR group that says, hey, we are going to layer in what an appropriate sales enablement playbook platform looks like. Hey, by the way, it's just not a tech stack. Is that kind of what you're talking about? So they can go back.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So what we'll do is we'll carve out. So the theme of our conference is enabling customer engagement. That's the overall theme. So we have to have, this is a big topic. Sales enablement is a big topic. We have to be inclusive for everybody. Within that, we have small little, the way that we think about our conference is more like an amusement park. So when you have an amusement park, you have roller coasters and kiddie rides. There's something for everybody. Yeah. We're designing something for everybody. We'd love to partner with AA-ISP to say, hey, here's the something for the inside sales group. And then within that, have like a mini conference within a conference and say, all right, here's perspectives of the roles. Here's perspective of the different channels. Here's perspective of what the strategic game plan looks like, the playbooks, and publish them and put them out there. And we're going to have so many different forms of media to share that. We're really, really good at that. We're really good about the social media and the video. That we're going to be able to publish that and get a lot of noise on it. So we'd love to work with you guys on it. We'd love to have a track within a track. The focal point will be really taking inside sales and sales enablement to the next level.
Well, look, I'm glad you're going to be the guinea pig, because in a good way, right? So when is your conference?
September 16th through 19th. It's in Denver.
Nice.
You're going to see a lot more out of it. And that'll be a theme within a theme. And we're going to ask a lot of our chapters to help develop some of this content too.
That's great. So when we roll, do a couple of these sessions together, we'll refine it. Hopefully we'll learn, we'll tweak. And then when it comes to our AA-ISP's next conference, we'll sort of do the same thing, kind of flip it around.
That's right.
Scott, let's do this. We're near the end of our 10, 15 minutes here. So I'm going to ask you to offer up some real takeaways. If let's say you're watching this and you're an inside sales leader. A lot of leaders watch this Digi-Cast. What should every sales or inside sales leader, what should they expect from their sales enablement people if hopefully they have some, right, in that role? What are those top 3 or 4 things they need to expect that they get?
So I love this question. Let me frame it out a little bit first. Regardless of whether you're an inside sales leader, the head of all sales, or whatever, one of the things that as sales leaders, and I have that bias. I've been in sales a lot of my life. Yeah. We are horrible at internal selling. And what's happened is when we just let things go and just, that's not really, that really doesn't matter. Well, those resources get utilized and it creates more noise for us. So we, it's sort of like we resist the whole idea of, fighting City Hall.
Yeah.
But we got to stop doing it.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is share with you is a checklist of what to demand. Now, I know it's difficult because the reality is that there's so many different independent groups inside your company that are doing things to quote unquote help sales.
Yep.
In my view, all of that is sales enablement. It's a whole bunch of shard glass. And what I'm going to talk about would be how can you start the conversation to take all these shard glasses and say, here's the stained glass window of how it all fits together for us. The first part is starting simply. One of the things that sales leaders tend to do is over communicate. And unfortunately, it's funny, we police ourselves from using jargon with our customers, but we use way too much jargon inside our organizations. We also assume that our internal people understand or have empathy for our customers like we do, and they do not. They just don't understand. So please be patient when you deliver it, because when you communicate with intensity, all you do is put people on the defensive, and when you're not there, they blame sales. It's what happens, and then you are put in a defensive posture. So with that, having said that, what I find is the most effective is to start off with a very simple model. That simple model is, hey, who is our audience? What are the messages that we need to deliver to that audience? Who are the messengers, AKA our salespeople, how we're engaging with them, and then how do we interact? Audience, message, messenger, and then 2 arrows, interaction point. That model is super important because if you don't demonstrate that it's all about a inner relationship, a quid pro quo, a conversation, we're always going to get tons of stuff, and we're going to be still doing our spreadsheet management of looking at stuff rather than asking whether it works. So that's the first one, is let's frame the conversation. Okay. The second thing then that we need to do is to create a framework for us to actually have the conversation to evaluate whether the supply chain behind us is actually helping us. And I mean no disrespect to any sales methodology. This is different than sales methodologies, but it doesn't matter what we're selling. There's only 5 measurable things that we do, whether it be strategic accounts, named accounts, or whether it be BDR. There's only 5 things. The first thing is we need to know who our audience is. Bottom line. So question number 1 on that. Does our product group know exactly who our audience is, and do we agree with it? You'd be shocked at how few companies actually have a clear answer to that. So that, who might that be involved with? Well, you're going to get different answers if you ask different product groups. You're going to get different answers when you ask the marketing. And that's got to be unacceptable for sales leaders, because basically what they're asking you to do is go canvas a whole bunch of different people, and they're going to hold you accountable to a role that or target that they don't even know.
And Scott, sometimes I've been in that position as a sales leader. I'm just going to ignore that. That's noise. Hey guys, go make your number, right? We avoid the uncomfortable conversation.
Yep. And it's horrifying, because what happens if we don't have that conversation, so you're looking like, I'm telling you, the reason that if you don't have that conversation, what's going to happen is we're not going to have enough of a pipeline. So the demand marketing is going to kick in to help us generate leads. They're going to generate leads, and they're going to make a bunch of assumptions about who these targets are. We're going to have to follow up on all those leads. Your salespeople are going to complain that those leads are crappy, but we don't have any evidence to back it up. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tell them to just do order entry and fill in stuff in Salesforce to say that we actually did follow up on the leads.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say what maybe an actual tip for the leader then is get out in front of these conversations, do some planning. You use the word patience. I love that. Don't go in there, hey, we need this. Let's work together, collaborate, get on the same page.
So that's number 1. Okay. Number 2, And that's a measurable thing. It's binary. So the thing that I love about sales is it's binary. It's either we did it or we didn't do it. So do we know who our target audience is or do we not?
Yep.
If we do not, let's not go and invest a whole bunch of resources on a go-to-market plan. Let's actually say, who are the people that we want to tiptoe? Okay, number 2. So now that we know who we want to talk to, binary thing, we have to get access to them. Period. How often do we get told what best practices are, and how little are those best practices actually field tested? It drives me insane. So we should demand, if people are saying do all these things and we're going to do all this lead generation, we should demand before we accept it to our sales force, we should ask, where's the proof? Not the proof, the benchmarking of other organizations, because benchmarking is crap. All it does is say what everybody else does. You don't run anybody else's race. You run your own race. So the second thing is, how do we get access? So if we're trying to get access to a certain target, let's go get access to them. And figuring out the exact right way to do it is trial and error. We know that as individual salespeople. Well, why don't we do it at scale? Let's force the people who are trying to do things to help us to have the same level of accountability on messaging that we do. And let's say, have them field test it. Let them go get appointments.
So access meaning conversations with, A/B testing with, what's working, feedback from, is that?
Exactly. Like, so for example, we see a lot of conversations about social media or whether you do phone prospecting or email prospecting or whatever. Yeah. And we're like focusing on the technology. Yeah. Let's concentrate on whether it works or not. Who cares which technology works or not? I don't care. I just want to get a meeting with a particular executive.
Listen, this is so good. It's like this crusty, dated sales leader says, you got to make 100 calls. The leader doesn't know the answer rate today is like 2%, right? But the open rates on emails is greater. Maybe email's a better methodology. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Exactly. Let's find out what works and let's learn to measure it. And then let's say, because we do have a lot of people who think it's just about phone banging.
Got it.
Phone banging may work if you're calling on minions. I can tell you for absolute certainty, it does not work when you try to engage executives. It doesn't work, period. So we have to figure out, like, and that's why we need to know who our audience is. Yeah. If we're trying to sell to people with adult level wallet, adult money, well, we have to have adult money tactics. If we're trying to sell to procurement weenies, then, procurement tactics.
All right. What's your third one? The first one, audience. Second one, access.
Yep. Number 3, we got to have a successful first meeting. Success is defined by the client agrees to explore it further. Simple, binary, yes or no, right? How often do we get playbooks? And we have a whole bunch of questions in those playbooks. And then we should go to try to use them, and they're not conversational at all. They're not real questions.
Right.
Or worse, for me personally, you get a bunch of questions, but then, okay, I've asked the question. Now what the hell do I say? I don't know what to say. I don't have enough information about that. So how we assemble all of the information into something that's meaningful for the client, so they go, you know what, Bob? What you're talking about makes a lot of sense. We're willing to explore that moving forward with you.
Yeah.
That is super hard. And we don't have enough stories. And I can tell you the workshops that I do with other sales forces, et cetera, a lot of people do it differently. And the people who do it really, really, really well all do it in a similar way. But we keep getting more and more things in this scenario. What happens is, when you follow up with a ton of material, and it's just overwhelming. So, point number 3 is, after we've gotten access, we have to get that client to say, hey, I'm willing to explore a sales process with you.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. End of subject.
Okay. Number 4, we have to create a match. So some people call it a shared vision. Some people might call it, whatever you call it, we have to be able to say, now that we've explored these things, the problem that they're trying to address and the capabilities that we bring to bear, they see themselves in our solution. We have to be able to do it. What's interesting is when you look, we think funnels look like this.
most of the funnels that I see look more like boa constrictors that have eaten a pig. They get stuck in that stage. And it's because we don't really have a lot of good structured ways to help connect the dots. As more and more of our sales include multiple stakeholders, helping to get that shared vision and get buy-in from everybody is challenging. I haven't seen one sales methodology. I haven't seen one marketing playbook or one strategy that's really helps focus on this particular problem. And we need to illuminate it and bang it forward, because if the client doesn't say we see those sums in it, guess what happens? Our deals time out. They just fizzle away.
Scott,
and go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say this boa constrictor thing is great. We see it all the time. Perhaps if 3 isn't done well enough, you talk about questioning, not just 10 questions. I'm going to interrogate you, but some sharing of case studies, sharing of stories, right? Storytelling. If 3 isn't done well enough, 4 can fail, correct? Or if 3 is done well, 4 could succeed.
So yeah, they're additive, right? We still get it. The way that I think about it is like, these are like rounding bases. So if we want to advance runners, yeah, sometimes you can do a sale and you can go around a horn of all of them. But really what we need from the people who are supporting us is we need a systematic, methodical way to support us. So this isn't about advising an individual seller. This is about getting the supply chain behind us to help us manufacture runs, like Moneyball. So that whole idea of the boa constrictor, that shared vision, if you're having a huge amount of deals stall out, or if your biggest competitor is NDI, no decision incorporated, you have this problem. And I'm telling you, NDI is killing everybody. I want to buy stock in No Decision Inc.
Yeah.
You're slaughtering everybody.
So, I know you got one more, but I got to interject here. This framework you're sharing is really the essence of the sales cycle itself. I like the idea of getting around the bases, right? And what you're saying is sales enablement, the supply chain can help support each and every one of those pieces.
Exactly. So the way that I see it is, we have finite resources in sales. The sales organization, the salespeople, they are the brand ambassadors to your company.
Yeah.
And there's a finite amount of time. Let's say there's 40 hours. How do you use that 40 hours, and is it effective? Yeah. And if we have people behind the scenes looking at hey, how do we make the order entry process just 5% easier on this, or how do we make the conversation 10% more effective? What happens is, when you add up these little tiny things, when you look at manufacturing a pipeline, it's exponential. You can get exponential growth and productivity by focusing on these little things. And that's why you as a sales leader need to work on what that strategy is, because the biggest boost that you can have in your sales force is less about, hiring your salespeople. It's to get the infrastructure, the supply chain behind you to work for you.
Here's a great example of what you just said. There may be a technology. I know there's a technology out there a lot of sales leaders are adopting, which allows them to make more connections, more calls, more live conversations. That's great. That's fantastic, right? We'd all agree. It's a good thing. But if step 3 and 4, if they're missing 3 and 4, all those conversations are going to go to stall.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And to piggyback on it, to explain or to share how big of a challenge this is, how many times, so let's say your whole organization has really, really motivated your sales force to adopt all the social selling stuff that everybody's talking about.
Yep.
Well, in the social selling world, everything is about little tiny digestible little bits of information that are to be forwarded to other people. Who's building that for you? You can't build that yourself. You can't figure out how to make the videos. So to get the marketers or the other people to get outside of their comfort zone and build you that kind of content requires the sales leader to explain what the challenge is, or bring somebody in who can, but you need to own that. because they are not going to be able to prescribe to you what you need. They're just not going to be able to. So they're going to interview your salespeople. They're going to say, hey, we found you need these things. And you're going to agree to give them a playbook. They're going to go build the playbook. And the playbook is not going to be built to engage with your customers, because it can't be, because they don't know. So this is what we have to do. We have to recognize that if we want things to be usable for our salespeople, we have to realize that the supply chain behind us really has to change. And we have to start demanding it.
I'm hearing a session right here, what you said, an actual training session for sales leaders that said, sales leaders, here is how you go about collaborating with, influencing, and getting buy-in from the supply chain, just for sales leaders.
Yep, we can also do that as a workshop.
Yeah,
with marketers, because there are a lot of marketers who do want to help. They just don't understand. They don't have empathy, and I think that's the key word. We talk in sales a lot about having empathy for our clients.
Yeah,
we're not doing a good enough job of helping the rest of the organization have empathy for what it's like to be a salesperson. So salespeople come off to the rest of the organization as intense and complaining or whatever. But in my experience, salespeople are the nicest people in the world. They're the most interesting, the funnest, but they're intense because they are the one person in the company that's making a face-to-face promise with a customer.
Yeah.
And it's their own reputation on the line. And other people don't understand that. And if people understood that and understood why salespeople would do it, they would understand that the way they need to build content is different. And then the way they need to rehearse it is different.
Look, I used to bring marketing in on splitters for that very reason. Hey, you want to hear some objections? You want to hear people saying, I don't have time, hang up.
Yeah, and I would go one step further. I would demand, so this is what I'm trying to advocate in terms of sales enablement. So I'm hopeful that the sales leaders will do this too. It's one thing to listen in. It's a completely different thing to do it.
Make the calls.
Even myself today, as a consultant, if I'm allowed to, based on NDAs or whatever, I'll make cold calls.
I love it.
And I think there's nothing more than being authentic, because let's face it, as sales leaders, or as salespeople, we all roll our eyes about an external consultant, like, oh, what do they know? But if you've actually made the calls, guess what? Everybody will listen to you.
Credibility. All right, listen, we're way over time, and this is good. I think we're going to take this maybe and turn it into like a webinar almost, right? So number 5, that's your last point.
Number 5, the business case. Simple, binary. They accept our proposal or they don't. There's a lot, there's a lot to it. We spend a lot of time talking about negotiating training. Obviously, if we do 1 through 4 better, our chances of winning are greater. But there's still some things that we can do in the interim. We should have better information about and more up-to-date information about maybe competitive pricing challenges and things like that. We should have better information about boxing people out, or re-engineering, or if we're stuck in an RFP, what are some strategies about how to blow up that RFP? Because a lot of people are going to be super scared to not follow exactly what the customer is looking for. Somebody's got to be authorized to look at it and say, we can't win this. Our chances of winning are 10% based on data, so we got to blow up this RFP. Let's bring in the specialist, like Pulp Fiction. Bring in the specialist to come in, boom, we're going to blow up this RFP and give us a better chance of winning. So there are all of these things that we need to be able to do, and we need to be able to organize in each one of these 5 areas. Do we have the right, do we know the right buyer? Can we get access to them? Do we have a successful meeting? Do we have a shared vision case? Do we make the business case? We all know there's strategies for it. We need to be able to pick up the phone and bring in the expert right now, super fast, and then they're going to know exactly what to do. Time is of the essence, just like in Pulp Fiction. We got to go. We got to get, bring in the cleaner. So those are the things that we need to do, and we need to demand that. We need to demand those kinds of services, and then we have to make sure that all of the technology that are asking our salespeople, all of these things fit together. If we don't demand the IT people to make sure all of these piece parts are integrated, we're going to spend so much time fumbling through trying to figure out forms and links, etc., we'll finally get that done, and then we'll not be on message by the end of all that.
I love it. Forms and links. Dirty words to salespeople.
Yeah.
Like, hey, listen, Scott, this has been great. Sort of the last comment I have for you to reflect on is the audience, the access, the match, right? The meeting, the business case. Are these areas that you'll be addressing in September 16th through 19th at your conference? Some detail, some more workshop stuff around these pieces?
I hope so. We're still formulating, what that looks like. If you guys demand it and we get people who want to drive it, then we're going to do it. What I want to have is I want to have a very aggressive voice of sales at our conference. So we're going to build a voice of sales. And I want us to start talking about what this means. And I think you guys as sales leaders are going to be fascinated about how the rest of the organization interprets data that they collect about the sales force. You're going to be shocked, actually. And I think the more awareness that you guys have about how product marketers, how brand marketers, how product people, how training people, how executives look at the data about sales and the conclusions that they come to it, maybe will motivate you more on fighting City Hall a little bit.
I love it. Bringing the two pieces together in unity to help make the selling profession, to raise the level of the profession of sales and the performance of salespeople. It's all good. Great interview. Thanks, viewers, for sticking with us. I know we went way over time, but give us your comments, right? Give us your feedback. Any parting words, Scott?
I'm looking forward to our next call in 2 weeks. Please, if you're Sales Enablement Society chapter, please reach out and actually just have a meeting about inside sales. And if the AA-ISP chapter wants to join, then great. If not, have it ourselves. Let's get the conversation going. The more specific we get about sales channels, the better off we're going to be to support them. Number two, for AA-ISP people, anybody interested in this topic and in the conference, please help Bob and I carve out the chunk, the chocolate of AA-ISP and the peanut butter of Sales Enablement Society. Let's make a Reese's peanut butter cup at our conference. And then thirdly, give us feedback on this on this basic structure. 5 things, they're ones or zeros. Challenge it a little bit. I'd love to be able to share with you feedback of what kind of resonance this gets with CEOs and CFOs. They really appreciate the simplicity of it. How you actually have those conversations, and what we can do to build on it. So those would be my three things.
It sounds good, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. It is Scott and Bob, Sales Enablement, AAISP, signing off. Have a good day.
All right, thank you.